The biggest disappointment to me with modern horror is that nobody's using it as allegory at all. I mean, it's, you know, that's what it's there for. I mean, nursery rhymes are political, and nobody's doing that. It's just, you know, hey, I got this guy with a knife, and we could make 9 movies about this guy. My manager printed up T-shirts calling me the godfather of the dead. When I made the first film, I never called them zombies. I called them flesh eaters. To me, zombies were always those boys in the Caribbean, you know, doing the wet work for Lugosi. Then in the second film, I called them zombies, and I did a little nod to the voodoo. Took some of the sort of mysterioso voodoo stuff out of it and made them the neighbors. And the neighbors are frightening enough when they're alive. I just wanted some sort of game-changing, disastrous thing to happen that my human characters could ignore. Night of the Living Dead is the only time that I was consciously said to myself a few times during the making of the film that this is a spooky moment. I'm going to try to scare you with this. Dawn of the Dead was a complete comic book. I mean, I grew up on EC comic books before the Comics Code, and you sort of chuckled while you barfed. Night of the Living Dead first played in drive-ins and neighborhood theaters, and it actually returned money to us. We actually made money. When we made the first film, I never thought it would turn into 6 films. I thought I was just going to do this little sort of angry kind of 60s thing about disintegration of the family unit, the lack of civility, and aside from, you know, a few lingering angry voices like Roger Ebert saying, you know, look what these evil people will do if, you know, we need a controlling group like the MPAA. And it went away. And then all of a sudden, Cahiers du Cinéma, there was the French who really discovered it and started to write about it as though it was, you know, essential American cinema. I do consider myself an auteur to the extent I've never taken a job. I've never made a film just for the paycheck or for any other reason, except it's something that interests me, something I want to do. And I like to have as much control over it as possible. And this attitude has cost me a lot of gigs. So I think that's where that reputation comes from. I also do insist that there's a theme. The biggest statement that I think that I'm making, I mean, the sky can be falling and people are still worried about, I gotta pick up my shirts at the cleaners. I gotta, buy a new pair of Nikes, or, you know, people are just so self-centered and self-focused. To me, that's the most stunning thing, the thing that's keeping us from, making real sort of social, civilized progress is the factionalization that comes in so many different ways. But that's been true from the first film on. They wind up arguing about, should we go in the basement or stay up here? What's safer? And instead of saying, guys, look what's happening.
Last time anyone counted, 53 million people were dying every year, 150,000 every day, 107 every minute. It had become an us versus them world. All we were looking for was a place where there was no them.
Diary cost so little to make that despite limited release, it made a lot of money. So I said, why don't we sort of strategize this a little bit? So I said I could do 3 storylines, which will basically in the end wind up being one piece, but 3 separate storylines that will interweave, characters will cross, plots will cross, and all that, and it'll all come from Diary. They'll all be characters that were in Diary, and then they will go on, and we'll have this little collage. I toned the zombies down in this film. They seem to be less of a threat. They're almost like, you know, an annoyance. There's a lot of mosquitoes out tonight. I did that purposely because I wanted to just really try to bring that focus down to you stupid idiots. I mean, you're still shooting at each other. You're even arguing over what to do with the zombies. Wish I had the magic bullet that could make people say, God, you know, but no one is ever going to say, you know what, you're right, I'm an asshole.